Welcome back to Weems Motor Co. I may be putting my foot in my mouth, but the plan is to have this bike running by the end of this video. Stick around. Alright, so per our last video, we were waiting for a couple of items to come in, which being the chain, the seat, the exhaust, and we have the seat and the exhaust in, and the chain by tracking should be here today. So what I figured we could do is we could go ahead and get this seat mounted up because it's just kind of sitting on there. Now I do have the original rear bracket that came on the bike, so we're going to utilize this piece for the rear section. It mounts up back there where the shocks are at, but I'm going to have to fabricate up one for the front of the seat. So once we have that seat mounts done, I'm thinking probably the next thing we need to do is to wire the bike. Now there's some things about this bike that I don't know. I've never had one of these Cubs before. I've never built one. I've never even ridden one of these things. And there's not a whole lot of information on this specific 1967 Mountain Cub out there. So when it comes time to set the ignition up, which we can't do until we get the chain on there, but it's going to be pretty difficult to find that information. So we might have to do some research. But without further ado, let's get this seat mount done, and then we can start moving on to the other stuff. Let's get to work. All right, so here we have our new seat, our old seat. Like I said, we're going to use that bracket off of there for the rear portion of that seat, but for the front, where it hooks up by the tank, I'm going to use the old seat, make some measurements off of this little bracket right here because I know it's going to fit the frame, and be able to get it knocked out. So let's cut it out. All right, looks pretty good, but before I get it all tightened down and everything, we need to move over to wiring this motorcycle. So let's sit down and have a talk. All right, for some particular reason, there's not a whole lot of information out there when it comes to these Triumph Cubs, particularly these later model 1967 Mountain Cubs. But what I've been able to research through forums and investigating through old manuals is that these motorcycles use a system called an ET ignition system. Now, the ET stands for energy transfer. What it does is it takes on the end of the crankshaft, you have a rotor that rotates and it has magnets around it. Now, that rides inside of the stator that is mounted to the inside of the primary cover. As that magnetic force rotates in there, it creates electrical energy, and that shoots it out through these wires. Now, there were several different configurations of these stators throughout the year. They started off with a 3-wire, then they went to a 4-wire, and this is the later one that has 5 wires. There's not a whole lot of components to this system, so what it does is it takes the energy that creates from this rotor stator setup, sends it through these wires, and then it goes out to your coil, and from your coil down to your spark plug, and sends the spark to the engine. Now, it doesn't just go from there, but in order for that to be timed and fire correctly, you have a set of points that rides on the other side of the motorcycle off of your camshaft. And these points open and close, and that creates a spark, sends the signal back to that coil that sends it down to the spark plug wire and to the engine to fire. The only additional element for this is a kill switch. And that basically just grounds out the system that stops that energy from going from the points to the coil to the spark plug. So I've been looking for a wiring diagram for these. Like I said, there was 3 different configurations and not a whole lot out there, but I was able to dig deep and I discovered a wiring diagram directly from Lucas. Yes, we know Lucas. It's on the British motorcycles. People call him the Prince of Darkness. But they hold a special place in my heart. I'm like, if it worked originally from the factory, it will work now in the year 2025. So we upgraded the coil, got a new coil, but we're going to be running the original points, running the original stator, original kill switch, as many points as possible. So now that we have a wiring diagram that is somewhat correct, I found that we need to ground an additional wire. We can get this bike wired, and it's not going to take very long to do that, so I'm not going to bore y'all with that. I'm just going to go ahead and remove that seat back off, get the coil mounted, run the wires that we need to run, and we can move on to the next portion, which is going to be setting up the timing, which includes putting that chain on. So let's get back to work. All right, now that we got the bike all wired up, we are ready to get the ignition system installed. Now, the first point in this process is we need to find out where top dead center is so that we can use our degree wheel and set the specific settings for this particular motorcycle. Easy way to do that is to get a jack underneath it, jack it up, put it in 4th gear, and use the rear wheel to rotate the engine. Now, we're going to use a piston stop. This screws into your spark plug hole, and as that piston comes up, it's going to make contact and stop that engine. We'll set the degree wheel to 0. Now, that isn't our top dead center. This just tells us where the piston stops. Then we're going to rotate the engine all the way backwards, and the number the degree wheel shows is going to be divided by 2. Now, when we divide that by 2, we'll take the piston stop back out, rotate the engine back forward, and whatever that number is divided by 2 is going to give us our exact top dead center. Now, once we have the exact top dead center, we know that we need to set the ignition system to what the manual says for the optimum firing point. Now, these manuals are all over the place depending on what year and everything, and even if you can find the right year for your bike. Case in point, this is an excerpt out of the manual, and it's 3 different models of T120 Cubs, and it all depends on what kind of pistons you have in there. We know that this particular one, we have a 7-to-1 compression piston, but as we go down, it tells us what degree, and then it's going to be talking about static timing versus full advanced timing, and you have this little mechanized unit that automatically advances the ignition system depending on which model you have. Now, this being a 1967 Triumph Mountain Cub, we know it has that 7-to-1 compression piston in it. The manual says that that auto advance should be 10 degrees. However, this is a 5 degrees. So, digging deeper, I found an old excerpt from a Triumph service bulletin dated April 26, 1967, and very first point it says ignition timing. All 1967 T20M models were fitted with 7-to-1 compression ratio piston, and it has been found that these machines often run better with the ignition timing of 32 degrees fully advanced instead of the 36 degrees timing recommended on earlier models. Okay, this helps a lot. Now I know that 32 degrees fully advanced, that means when this auto advance unit is fully opened, that I should be at 32 degrees. So I'd have to take 32 degrees and subtract the 5 degrees that this retards the ignition. So we're back down to 27 degrees when I install that. That's the point at which the points should be opening. Even more craziness. At the bottom of that service bulletin, it talks about, hey, if you're running this energy transfer system, we want to make sure that the rotor on the transmission or on the crankshaft is in the right place. Listen, people, working on these Cubs is way more difficult than working on any pre-unit or any T120 650 model. So know the research, dig in, try to find as much as you can. So what we're going to do, get this piston to where it needs to be so that we can install the advance unit, so that we can install the points, and hopefully at that point we will be ready to go and we can move on to the next portion. But before we do all of that, I got to put the chain on. So let's get the chain on. All right, 32 degrees minus 5 degrees for that auto advance is 27 degrees. We're set there, ready to install the points. Now we got to get on the other side of the engine, start installing. All right, something important to note is that on the back of this auto advance, there is no keyway on this taper. So as we slide it in, it is a friction mount, very similar to like the pre-unit magneto setups are. But we know that with being a single point, because it's a single cylinder motor, that these want to be around the 3 o'clock position. So as we slide this in, we know that this auto advance, the edge shape, the high point where it starts to open the points, that needs to be indicated pretty closely. So we have some adjustment here. We have these slots at the top so we can get this turned to where it's going to be at an optimum point. So we want to get this seated in so we can get everything lined up in there and we can get this ignition set, and fingers crossed we're going to be dead on. So let's get this auto advance in there, get the points plate in, and keep moving forward. All right, now that we got the points to where they're just about to open at 27 degrees before top dead center, because we have that 5 degree auto advance, that puts us at 32 degrees, optimum firing point, fully advanced. Now we need to rotate the engine so that the points are fully open, and we need to set that gap to 15 thousandths of an inch. So rotate the engine up, set that gap, and then we should be all wrapped up when it comes to the electrical system on this motorcycle. So let's knock out that last little part. While we're on this side of the bike, let's go ahead and toss on the exhaust. All right, now we can slap this primary cover with the built-in stator back on here, hook up 3 wires, and see what we got to do after that. All right, so it's the next day. I spent the rest of yesterday just chasing down some intermittent spark. Found out that one of the wires coming from the stator is kinked and probably broken on the inside. So we've been addressing that. I think I got it fixed. I think right now about the only thing we need to do is to add some oil into this thing, into the gearbox, into the oil tank. And funny enough, it actually uses the same oil in the forks, in the oil tank, and in the gearbox, and also in the primary. So thought that was really new information for me. But hey, simplify, simplify, simplify. But that being said, we can add some oil into it, add some gas into it, and add a boot on that kicker pedal and see if it comes to life. I'll tell you what, this thing has been fighting me the whole way. I've built many Triumph 650s and 500s and 750s. The first time building a Cub has been an adventure. I say that I take 3 steps forward, 1 step back, because I'm just not used to doing these. So I understand why a lot of people stay away from the Triumph Cub. But I think we got it going. So let's get those fluids in there and let's see if we can get it started. All right, we are all lubed up and fueled up. Last thing to do, turn the petcock on, tickle that carburetor, and see if this thing kicks to life. Let's give it a try. See what happens. Oh, a little kickback. Woo. Huh. With a kickback like that, it tells me that the timing's a little advanced.
12 seconds later.
Alright, got a little bit of adjustment on the timing and on the points. Let's see what happens. Well, that didn't work. A little bit more adjustment done. See what happens. Maybe going in the wrong direction. See what this does. And give it a little bit more of that.
3 hours later.
Can you move it along? I'm all out of time cards.
Huh. Well, keep going. Let's give it another shot.
2,000 years later. Eventually.
Hey! Success! Rocker box speed, so we can figure that one out. Let it run! Yeah! Alright, pulled that oil feed back off, found that it was basically binding itself against the rocker box, so I had to take a little bit of material off of there. Re-annealed the copper gaskets and put it back on, and let's see if it stops leaks. They say about 3 steps forward, 1 step back. All right, let's see if the third time is a charm. Fingers crossed. Looking good so far. Third time is out of the car. Now. Alright, so we took a couple extra days, took one day off, and took another day, went and got a haircut, and said, hey, let's just take a little break away from the Cub, reset our mind after chasing down those oil leaks, and came back this morning and went through everything and hopefully buttoned up all of those little issues. We're having a fuel leak on the carb, had just a slight little dribble out of the primary drain bolt, so nothing more than just torquing that a little bit down. And then over on the other side of the bike, that oil feed on the rocker boxes, I was able to take some chemical chem dye and put it on the back side of that oil feed and then put it back on there to see if we were making contact with the engine housing, and it was. So I was able to remove just a little bit of material so that that thing can fully seat, hopefully, and went ahead and put a set of new crush washers on there. So I think at this point, this thing's ready to go. I haven't started it since the last video that you guys seen, so it's completely cold. So this will give us an opportunity to see how that timing is set, if it's going to be a 1 kicker or a 5 kicker. It's all about learning that handshake, how to prime the carburetor, how much throttle to give, and how much boot to put in it when you go to start it. So fingers crossed everything's knocked out, and if so, no leaks, then we get to take this thing out of the garage and go take it for a ride. First time on a Triumph Cub ever, so I'm pretty stoked about it. Let's get this camera down, let's get this thing fired up and see if we can go ride. All right, same process as ever. Fuel on, tickle that carb. So we see a little bit of fuel come out. There we go. Think she's ready to go. No on and off switch. Let's put a boot in it, see what happens. Not seeing any leaks. Let's go check it out. I think we can take this thing for a ride. Let's go do it. All right, so here we are, just like when we were riding our Desert Sled 1956 650. It's starting to rain. Once again, I guess maybe that might be a good luck thing, as that bike is still running, doing great. But now is the time to check out the 1967 Triumph Mountain Cub. Never rode one of these before. Fingers crossed everything's good inside the gearbox. Clutches are gonna all work. We know it'll fire up and run and not leak, so that's a positive. So let's see what happens. Oh, 1 kick, baby. Alright, clutch in. Let's see what happens. See if we can get our gear. There we go. Oh, we're moving on its own power. Make sure I got brakes. Got front brakes, rear brakes. We're good. Second gear. Third gear. One more. Fourth gear. And we are rolling down the road. Wow. Man, super cool. I tell you what, I am always impressed with how easy, well, maybe not easy on this thing, but how these things come together and still run and ride. Oh, this thing is so light and nimble. Super cool. Downshift, alright. nice and smooth. I am, like I said, impressed. Yeah, those front brakes leave a little bit to be wanted there. I mean, they are only like 4-inch diameter and they're a drum brake. Shifting great, clutch is feeling good. You know, this is a fun little bike. Around the streets a little bit here, and then we'll do like we did with the desert sled. We'll take it for a little trip around the pond. Maybe the HOA won't call me. Take her around the pond. Let's see what happens. Hey look, a flamingo! Welcome to Florida. Another flamingo! That was probably an alligator. What a cool little bike. Uh-oh. I think I just broke a clutch cable. That's gonna make for an exciting ride back home. No clutch. We're just gonna have to let her die. Alright, brakes, kill it. Oh yeah. Okay, well, we got back home. Fixing a clutch lever, but you know what? The 1967 Triumph Mountain Cub, she's a rider, and it's a super fun time. Super excited about it. You guys got to see the whole process, and look, still no leaks. That's super rad. So, I'm gonna take this thing in, fix that clutch cable, but we're gonna wrap up this video right here on the 67 Mountain Cub. Man, I am super stoked about it. But with that, we thank you guys for hanging out. If you are new around here, jump down and hit that subscribe button. If you really like the video, hit that thumbs up, turn those notifications on, and let everyone know what's going on right here at Weems Motor Co. Peace.